Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry for the delay. Sir, would you please introduce yourself this morning to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Gator Jimmy Ray Punter from the Dixie County Sheriff's Department, Charles City, Florida.
So, now, Mr. Penn, you kind of have a soft voice. It's a little difficult to hear way back here. So I ask you to project all the way down to me so I can make sure the last jury here.
Yes.
Okay, I think that microphone is working, so use that if necessary. Sir, you are employed as a detective with the Dixie County Sheriff's Office.
That's correct.
How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
Approximately 16 years.
And how long have you been a detective?
Probably for 13 years of that.
So, back on November the 19th of 1990, were you employed as a detective with the Dixie County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I was.
Did you have an occasion to become involved in an investigation of a suspicious death in your county?
Yes, I did.
You described to us how you first became involved and where you went.
I was dispatched to the scene of a body approximately 8 or 9 miles north of Cross City, which is in Dixie County.
Sir, can you describe what you saw when you arrived at the scene?
I viewed a near nude white male person that was laying beside a wooded road just on the shoulder of the road when I arrived there.
Now, can you describe the general location where the body was found?
It is out in a very remote area of my county. There's no residential housings or any businesses out in that area, probably 6 or 8 miles. And the body scene was on a 2-rut log-in road.
Was the body in any way adjacent to any other thoroughfare or highway?
Approximately 2,000 yards off of a major 4-lane highway of Highway 19.
Now, what, if anything, did you do once you arrived at the scene?
The scene was secured by myself and other officers. Crime scene tape was put up, and then the Florida Department of Law Enforcement crime lab section was called to process and document the scene.
Did you make any observations about the body that you were describing to the jury?
Yes, I did. As I said, the body was near nude except for a pair of white tube socks that he had on his feet. And I observed what appeared to be 4 bullet wounds to the man. 3 of them was to his back, and 1 of them was to the base of the head.
What area of the head, sir?
Just to the base of it, just above the hairline.
You're describing, for the record, with your right hand, the back face of the skull, of your skull?
That's correct, yes.
And the back of the head?
In the back of the head.
Now, there comes a point in time during the course of your investigation that you made an attempt to identify that individual.
I did.
Can you describe to the jury how you were able to identify the individual you found on November 19, 1990?
We learned that the victim had been a reserved officer with the Bard County Sheriff's Office in the past, and from fingerprint comparisons, he was identified as Walter Gino Antonio.
Did you do anything further to assist you in making sure of your identification?
After we had the tentative...
Objection, Your Honor, unless the witness conducted the fingerprint analysis and has personal knowledge of it.
Name the executive. Can you lay it further?
Yes, sir. Well, I think we've already gone past the fingerprints. Did you locate any individual that knew Mr. Antonio?
I did. I located his fiancee, Miss Aileen Berry, who lived down in Cocoa, Florida. And she actually viewed the body and identified, confirmed our identification as Walter Gino Antonio.
Now, during the course of your investigation, were you able to locate any articles of personal property of Mr. Antonio? And first, before you answer that, when you arrived at the crime scene, when you found the body, were you able to find any personal property of the individual in that area of the body, anywhere adjacent to the crime scene?
No, we did not.
How about any vehicles?
No, we did not.
Did there come a point in time during the course of your investigation that you did locate various personal items of Mr. Antonio's?
Yes, we later found properties of his.
Can you describe what you did during the course of your investigation?
We found a ring that had been pawned at the OK Pawn Shop in Daytona Beach, Florida, that was identified as being that of Mr. Antonio. The ring had been pawned on December the 7th and had been pawned under the name of Cammie Marsh Green.
And did you subsequently recover that ring, sir?
I did, yes.
And was that ring identified by any individual as being the property of Mr. Antonio?
That was identified by Mrs. Aileen Berry, who had purchased the ring for Mr. Antonio as a gift.
Now, did you go further and locate any additional personal property of Mr. Antonio?
Yes, we found the numerous pieces of clothing and his wallet with several pieces of identification and other personal papers that had his name recorded on them up in Perry, or in Taylor County, Florida, which is a county that adjoins Dixie to the north, this scene being about 38 miles north of where the body was found.
And did any of those identifications, or was that in the wallet that you described, was there any items of value such as cash or currency?
There was no cash or currency, no.
There was personal identification?
Yes, there was.
Any type of credit cards, things of that nature?
Several credit cards, driver's license, social security cards.
And were those items taken into evidence and submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for processing?
Yes, there was.
Were you able to recover a vehicle belonging to Mr. Antonio?
Yes, we later recovered the vehicle.
Can you describe to the jury the date when the vehicle was recovered and your involvement in that investigation?
The vehicle was recovered on November the 24th of 1990 and was recovered in Brevard County. The vehicle had been abandoned in a wooded area. There was no identification features on the vehicle. There was no license plate mounted on the vehicle. The identification number behind the windshield had been a piece of paper covering it from view from the outside of the car.
Were there any keys located with the vehicle?
No, there was not.
Was the vehicle locked?
Yes, it was, with the exception of the trunk.
Was the trunk in closed position?
It was down and closed, yes.
Now, during the course of your investigation, did you have any contact with an individual known as Rose McNeil?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe your investigation and how Mrs. McNeil was involved with that?
Was present during an interview with Mrs. McNeil, she being the owner of the Fairview Motel in Port Orange, Florida, or Harbor Oaks area. And during the course of the interview, she was shown two photographic lineups, one bearing the photograph of Mrs. Wuornos.
And was Ms. McNeil able to make an identification of Ms. Wuornos?
Yes, she did.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm talking about a photographic line of identification that's clearly unacceptable. You can answer that, sir.
Yes, she did identify Mrs. Wuornos from those lineups.
Do you see the individual that was identified in the photograph by Mrs. McNeil in the courtroom today?
Yes, I did.
Could you identify her, please, for the record?
Objection basis of knowledge, Your Honor.
Make further reference.
All right, so are you familiar with the defendant, Aileen Wuornos?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with her photograph?
Yes, I am.
The photograph that was picked out by Rose McNeil, was that the photograph of Aileen Wuornos, the defendant seated in this courtroom today?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Objection basis of knowledge, Your Honor.
Make no rule.
You can identify if you can, sir.
Mrs. Wuornos is sitting here in the pinkish colored outfit here directly in front of me.
May the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Aileen Wuornos.
Over objection, Your Honor.
Sir, did Ms. Rose McNeil at that time indicate to you what name she knew defendant Aileen Wuornos as?
She knew her as both Lee and as Cammie Marsh Green.
Were you able to determine the whereabouts of Ty Moore, At the time, excuse me, let's go back if we may. During the course of your interview, did you also have a photographic lineup, including the photograph of Tyra Moore shown to Ms. McNeil?
Yes, I did.
And was Ms. McNeil able to identify Tyra Moore's photograph?
Yes, she did.
Now, in conjunction with the automobile that you recovered of Mr. Antonio's, did you do anything to determine through vehicle identification the ownership of that vehicle?
Yes, we ran both the VIN number and the license plate number of that vehicle.
And based upon that investigation, did you determine who the owner was?
Yes, it come back registered to Walter Gino Antonio.
And were you able to determine Mr. Antonio's date of birth?
Yes, I did.
And what was that, if you recall?
It was November the 22nd of 1930.
November the 22nd of 1930.
Yes, sir.
And you found him on November the 19th of 1990, is that correct?
Recognized and answered, Your Honor.
Okay. How old Mr. Antonio had been as of November the 19th of 1990?
59 years old, sir.
Now, did there come a point in time when you showed Ms. McNeil or present when photos were shown of the vehicle you identified as Mr. Antonio's?
Yes, I was.
And did Ms. McNeil describe to you if she had ever seen that vehicle before?
Yes, she said she'd seen a vehicle of that.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Rephrase your question.
Was the witness able to identify the vehicle that you had previously identified as owned by Walter Gino Antonio?
Yes, she did.
Was Ms. McNeil able to describe to you who was in possession of that vehicle when she saw it?
She said that Mrs. Wuornos was in possession of the vehicle at the time she saw it.
Was she able to indicate whether or not the vehicle was substantially in the same condition that you had found it in when she had seen it in the possession of the defendant?
Yes, I believe it was.
Did she indicate whether or not there was any tag on the car?
There was no tag displayed at the time she saw it.
Did she indicate whether or not she'd had any conversation with Ms. Wuornos as to why she had possession of the car, whether or not, and the reason for the tag being missing?
Yes.
Objection, hearsay within hearsay, Your Honor.
Take it, Judge.
Were you able to determine, as part of your investigation, the whereabouts of Ty Moore during from November the 17th on?
Yes, I was.
And could you tell us where you investigate, what that revealed to you?
We found two aircraft plane tickets that Mrs. Moore had boarded a plane on November the 17th and had left the state going to the state of Ohio and returning on November the 25th.
You had both the exiting from the state of Florida and the return of Tyra Moore.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And through the course of your investigation, was that information confirmed to you by Rose McNeil?
Yes, that's correct.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Your Honor, may I further?
Yes, sir.
If I can have the court's indulgence for a moment.
Yes, sir.
So let me show you what has been marked for identification purposes as states that 6I,
Yes, sir.
6I 1, 2, 3, and 4, and ask you if you can recognize these photographs.
Yes, I do.
All right, sir, can you tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what is contained in state 6I 1 for identification?
This photograph here depicts the area that we found the body. The farther portion here being the intersection with Highway 19 and depicts the ribbon that we put up protecting the scene.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of the crime scene as you saw it on November the 19th, 1990?
Yes, it is.
All right, sir. I'd ask you, sir, if you could describe what is contained in states 6I 3 for identification for the jury.
This depicts Mr. Antonio's body as we found it laying on the morning of November the 9th.
Objection to the publication.
All right, without showing it to the jury, so if you'll just describe, is that a fair and accurate representation of the condition of Mr. Antonio's body as you observed it on November the 19th, 1990?
Yes, it is.
Is that, let me show you, sir, if I may, what has been marked as states 6I 4 for identification, and ask you if you can recognize that photograph.
This is a closer view of Mr. Antonio, and it also better depicts the wounds that that we found Mr. Antonio with.
Does this photograph describe the wounds that you've testified to the back of Mr. Antonio?
That's correct,
And
yes.
how many wounds are visible in the photograph in state 6I4 for identification?
There's 3 visible in this photograph.
And were you able to determine during the course of your investigation whether there was a 4th wound to the body?
Yes, we did.
Okay, is that clearly visible in this photograph? And if it is or is not, can you explain why?
It is not visible in this photograph, and again, the 4th wound that we found was in the hairline.
Objection, Your Honor, unresponsive.
Was the 4th wound clearly visible to you at the time of the scene?
No, it wasn't.
Were you able to see anything that indicated to you as an investigator that there was a wound to an area of the body that you were not able to clearly see?
Yes, we did.
How was it that you were able to make that determination?
From seeing blood in the hair.
And where was the blood in the hair? If you use me, please, as an example.
Blood was located approximately here, about an inch above Mr. Antonio's hairline.
Your Honor, may the record
In the back of the hair.
that the witness is identifying the back of my skull but underneath the hairline. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of Mr. Antonio's body as you saw it on November the 19th, 1990, sir, with the wounds to his back?
Yes, it is.
Let me ask you this, sir. Can you identify state 6I2 for identification? And if you can, sir, can you tell us what it depicts?
This is Mr. Antonio's facial features as we found it at the scene of the body.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of Mr. Antonio and the condition of his face at the time?
Yes, it is.
All right, so let me show you, if I may, what has been marked for identification purposes as state 6J, as in John, for identification. Ask you if you're able to recognize those photographs.
These are the photographs of Mr. Antonio's vehicle and are the photographs that was used to show Mrs. Rose McNeil on the date of her interview.
Did any other individual identify those photographs to you as the automobile of Gino Antonio?
Yes, this vehicle has been...
Objection here, sir, Your Honor.
He can describe whether or not someone has identified. I'm not asking what they said.
It was identified, again, by a registration check of the VIN number.
And is this the vehicle you've described as being located, and is this substantially in the same condition as when you observed it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, the tag was missing?
Yes.
Were you able to determine whether or not there were any type of stickers or other identification on the car that had been on it prior to your observing it?
No.
So did you have occasion to attend the autopsy of Mr. Antonio?
Yes, I did.
And when did that occur?
That occurred on November the 20th of 1990.
The following day?
Yes, the following day.
And it was the same body that you saw that you've described as Walter Antonio autopsied by the medical examiner's office in your presence?
Yes, it is.
Let me show you, sir, what has been marked as a composite exhibit. State 6B, State 6C, and State 6D as in David for identification. Ask you if you can recognize those photographs.
Yes, the 2 smaller ones are that of Mr. Antonio at the date of the autopsy, and one showing the wound to the head.
Objection to the description, Your Honor.
Objection overruled. Go ahead.
One showing the shaved hair and showing the 4th wound that we found on Mr. Antonio.
Was that the wound that you described as being covered by the man's hair that you saw on November the 19th, 1990?
That's correct, yes,
That was
sir.
revealed to you by the medical examiner?
Yes, sir. And the larger photograph, again, showed a close view of the wounds to the back that was taken at the scene of the body.
Are they all of these fair and accurate representations? State 6D for identification as you saw the body of Mr. Antonio and the wounds to his back on November the 19th, 1990.
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
All are fair and accurate representations, sir?
Yes, they are.
So let me show you what has been marked for identification purposes as states 6K for identification, and ask you if you recognize that photograph. Madam Clerk, next.
Yes, this is Mr. Antonio.
This is the same individual that you saw on November the 19th at the crime scene and on November the 20th being autopsied?
Yes, it is, sir.
Sir, if I may please, I'll ask you to take a look at states 6G's for identification. Ask you if you recognize the envelope, and if you would please open that up and tell me if you can identify the contents of state 6G for identification.
This envelope contains Mr. Antonio's ring and an envelope from the pawn shop, and it bears a date and my initials and my agency case number.
Would you open it up, please, sir? If you go ahead and put it right back on top, it'll be fine for the time being. During the course of your investigation, did you go so far as to determine who had purchased that ring for Mr. Antonio?
Yes, I did, sir.
And how did you go about doing that?
Through interviews with his fiancee, Miss Aileen
Objection
Carol.
asked and answered here, so Your Honor.
Did you obtain any documentation as to if, when, and where that ring was purchased by Miss Berry for Mr.
Same
Antonio?
objection, Your Honor.
Can answer that.
Yes, I did get some documentation showing that purchase.
Sir. Let me show you, if I may, sir, what has been marked as states 6Fs for identification. Ask you if you would take a look at it and please open up the plastic bag and inspect the contents.
This is Mr. Antonio's wallet that was found at the clothing scene in Taylor County,
Now, approximately how many miles away from Mr. Antonio's body?
38 miles.
Give him that one. And is that the wallet that you found some 38 miles from Mr. Antonio's body, as you described to the jury with the content?
Yes, it is, sir.
Was there any money found therein?
No, sir, there was not.
Okay, in the personal identification, were there any photographs of Mr. Antonio on any type of the identification?
Yes, the Florida driver's license with his photograph, which seems to be the same as the 8 to 10 here.
So thank you very much. Sir, if I can, if you take a look, please, at what has been which has been marked as 3 J's for identification. Ask you if you can point out on the map the location where Mr. Antonio's body was recovered in your county, and what number, if any, it is designated by.
Okay, the number 7 would show the location of his body.
All right, sir. And can you show us the location where the automobile was recovered?
Yes, this was back by 7A.
All right, so may the record reflect, Your Honor, the witness has pointed to the number 7 and 7A, the 7 as the body location of Mr. Walter Antonio, and 7A as where his car was located. Thank you, Your Honor.
Right. The running objection, Your Honor. It's the same rules as the last few days. Right. Thanks, Judge.
Sir, I'm going to ask you, if you would, in the presence of the jury, to place a sticker indicating the location, the approximate location of where Mr. Antonio's body was found on the map. Would, sir? And if you would, sir, could you, if you don't mind peeling the tape, and show us where Mr. Antonio's car was located? Your Honor, may I have just one moment? Yes, sir. Okay. For the record, Your Honor, the witness has placed number 7 and 7A on what has been introduced in evidence. It states 42 in evidence. May I publish that to the jury? Yes, sir. Judge, if I can have just one moment.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you tell us when the car was recovered, whether there are any items of value found in it?
Has been answered, Your Honor.
No.
Go ahead, overrule.
No, so there was no valuables.
Thank you very much, sir. I have no further questions. Witness at this time, Your Honor.
Inquire, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Penn, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, sir.
My name is Billy Knowles. I'm one of the attorneys representing Ms. Wuornos. Did you bring your reports in reference to this case when you came here to testify today?
I don't have them in the courtroom with me, no, sir.
Did you bring them outside somewhere?
They're in my vehicle, yes, sir.
Let me ask you about this chart. Before you pin this thing, these little stickums you put here, you looked at this chart, correct?
That's correct,
And
yes.
this chart has already been pre-pinned, has it not?
Yes, sir, it has.
And you looked at this one before you put the stickums on this one.
That's correct, yes, sir.
You know who pre-pinned the other chart?
No, I did not, sir.
Do you have your reports in this building in reference to this case?
No, sir.
You have them in this county?
Yes, sir.
Where are they in this county?
In my vehicle in the parking lot.
Your Honor, we would request that the detective provide his reports to us formally at this juncture. We have received no reports in reference to Dixie County.
Your Honor, all reports in possession of the State Attorney's Office of Volusia County have been supplied to defense counsel. There's never been a request for any additional documentation. I can submit to the court every page, every item, every photograph in my possession or the State Attorney's Office has been supplied to him.
So if he wants what this man has, let's go get it right now. There's something late right here.
Thank you, Judge.
You may stand there and we'll get through this.
And the record reflects, Your Honor, that reports have in fact been submitted to defense counsel from this officer, and I have my discovery receipt to prove that.
Well, Your Honor, that's an issue we can take up at a later date, but I'm telling you, we don't have anything from
Get
Dixie
your
County.
report, sir.
Judge, well, the witnesses outside the court, and I fix some more stickers.
Yes, sir.
Judge, may we take this opportunity to publish? Well, I haven't actually introduced it. The witness is not. Maybe I can take this opportunity, Judge. I don't think we need the witness for this, but maybe offer a few items of identification in evidence.
Mr. Knowles, you want to bring example today?
Yes, Judge.
Of course, just no.
Right.
Let me inquire, will the safety something to introduce the license? Yeah.
I have other reports from other agencies that concerned all of the cases, such as FDLE officers and that type of thing, sir.
Do you have any other reports in your vehicle regarding Dixie County?
No, sir.
I'm sorry?
No, sir.
Do you mind if I look at the reports that you just brought in with you?
No, sir.
I may, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just a few minutes to take these to the defense counsel table or the review of the detective.
Things, and those are just in case something comes up so that you know what we're referring to, because we have not seen these before, so we don't know.
Objection, Your Honor.
Withdrawn, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I ask the jury to instruct the counsel that rights full discovery of every item that is contained.
That's nonsense, Your Honor, and let's have a hearing on it right now, because we have not.
We need to do this.
Yes, Judge.
When the act up, we're going to get one.
We'd ask that these documents be marked for identification.
You want to take this man's file from him?
We can run copies, Judge, and he can have the original file back.
When do you plan to do that?
The earliest convenience in the court.
Let's get it back to the man.
Sure, but we have it marked at some point as an exhibit?
Well, if you bring up any reason why it should be, yes, sir.
Okay.
We would formally request that it be marked for identification and be made at some point part
Are
of the way.
you going to be responsible for copying these 5 volumes or 4 volumes here?
I'll take them
I'm
out.
not going to ask the officer to work with it.
I'll take them out and copy them myself, and the authors can accompany me. I'll do each page, Judge.
Do you think?
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Penner, who is Philip Williams?
I'm sorry, sir.
Who is Philip Williams?
I don't recall the name, sir.
Do you have any reports in reference to a Philip Williams?
Possibly, sir.
Could you look through your documents and find those reports?
Your Honor, I object to the procedure being employed by counsel. There is a proper method for doing this.
Well, he can order show it when he has something.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the officer did not refer to his reports during the direct examination.
He didn't even have them here, Judge.
But we are outside the scope, Your Honor. I would submit the counsel wishes to call the officer. He can call him and he can ask any question he wants of him.
He can go ahead now.
Your Honor, may I interpose? I'll have this recorded as witness.
All right. This is a report that is faxed to you. If you could just look through that.
Objection, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Ronnie, may I be heard on this objection, please?
You're stepping in the jury room.
The jury is on the court, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, if I can be heard, counsel is asking this witness to testify to reports of other witnesses. He's asking clearly for hearsay. We'd ask, Judge, that the witness and the counsel identify the report as to whose they are, at least, and not try to make it look like they're somehow this witnesses. The procedure being employed by counsel is highly irregular, it's improper. The witnesses are available for him to call if they have direct testimony or personal knowledge. What he's seeking to do here, Judge, is to introduce reports of other officers who the state does not, at this point, for the juncture, have an opportunity to cross-examine, to determine the relevancy or the materiality of those statements, for the truthfulness of them, and lay in the mind of this jury that somehow this officer produced reports which are being withheld from defense counsel, which is simply not the case. We object, Judge. All we're asking is that counsel be required to follow the rules of criminal procedure, the rules of evidence as set forth under the evidence code. And if there are witnesses that counsel wishes to call, they should be required to call them. But for this officer to testify about other witnesses' reports that were faxed to him on other individuals, which will contain hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay within those reports. And Judge, we would ask at least that the witness, if we can get a voir dire, as to whether or not this is the entire case file in his possession and how much of that file are his reports. I would submit to the court, I would suspect that the bulk of it, based upon the witness's testimony, it's very little of it is his own reports from other agencies which he has maintained in his case file as part of his overall investigation. All of those reports have been supplied to defense counsel. So we'd like to know how much of this is his report. We'd like the record to reflect that he did not use any of these reports to testify. And Judge, we'd also like to determine whether or not a deposition was taken of this witness by defense counsel. He has been listed as a state's witness since January of 1991. To my knowledge, he has never been deposed by Mr. Knowles, Ms. Jenkins, or Mr. Miller, or anyone on behalf of this defendant. At that time, any of these reports could have been discovered should they have chosen to do so, and they simply have chosen not to do it. Now they come before the jury judge and try to make it look as if the state is hiding items of evidence from them. And to that procedure we object. We object to all of what Mr. Knowles is doing. It's highly improper. It's prejudicial to the state's case. We're asking the court to not allow it to occur.
No,
Yes, Your Honor, that's quite a grab bag of stuff. First, it's interesting to hear Mr. Damore's statements concerning what the report reflects. If Mr. Damore could tell us whether these documents have been in the possession of the Volusia County State Attorney's Office, because I heard a number of times here that we've been provided with everything the state has. I'm telling you, we have not had those reports. And if Your Honor wants, we could put on Ms. Jenkins, Ms. Miller, myself, and you can have a hearing on that. Those reports have never been provided. The name I asked this witness about has never been provided, Philip Williams. The questions that I intend to ask this witness about Philip Williams were developed by us while we were looking at the reports here in front of you. The reports are relevant, as Your Honor will hear during the course of the questioning. They relate to the investigation of the Dixie County case. They relate directly to the direct examination that Mr. Damore has elicited, including hearsay, including contact with other agencies, relating to what this officer did in Dixie County, and they go directly to the issue of whether Ms. Wuornos may be responsible for the Dixie County case. It's all proper cross-examination.
It's obvious you don't have to act. I think it is not very polite of your booking part to inconvenience the jury with these continuing handling over evidentiary matters that should have been in the trial. I'm not going to leave that jury locked up in that room. I'm going to give you 1 hour to get your act together. When I come back, I'm going to proceed, and we're going to wrap this case up the way it should be done.
Judge, all I'm saying is, for purposes of cross-examination, our act is together. I have any questions
I'm
in
not
front of
going
me.
to discuss it anymore. I'm saying you have 1 hour to get your act together, and I'm going to let the jury go out of the jury room because they're not going to be inconvenienced further.
And Judge, I don't mean to quibble with you, but my cross-examination is ready.
Well, obviously it's not. You're asking this man to refer to other things that from what I heard was something factually.
Well, let me give you an example. Remember Mr. Cocking in reference to the Spears case. I asked that officer, who is Mr. Cocking? And it was very relevant information that was elicited. This is along those same lines. It's not a fishing expedition. I think I have an idea of what the officer will say.
You're speaking with fork and tongue, sir.
With all due respect, I don't think so, Judge.
Well, when you say you haven't seen it, and I don't want to say you have all this knowledge about it.
Judge, we read it right before you. We read it right here.
I still say that's fork and tongue.
Well, then we would request a hearing, Your Honor. Let's have Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Miller and all of us testify, because seriously, Judge, it's not...
I don't need to hear what y'all have to say at this stage of the trial.
Your Honor, may I introduce one matter for the record? By letter, it's been previously marked as states 6K for identification. The letter dated June 7th, 1991, addressed from myself to Mrs. Jenkins at the Public Defender's Office on behalf and forwarded to the clerk. The internet has evidence. As to the
You
hearing,
went to the council, I'm not interested in what it says.
And for the record, in the file, Your Honor, you have numerous discovery requests by Ms. Jenkins.
And I requested this specific material 3 times to Mr. Tanner since this trial began and prior to this trial beginning, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm once again not going to use the L word, but I think the court...
My objection, Your Honor.
These little smart remarks, and you just have to overlook them, you know. If it gores your bore, whether it's bad, you say it's all right. When you see it's immaterial to me, who's off being gored, I'm trying to try a lawsuit. That's all I'm trying to do.
Judge, Mr. Tanner and I have just kicked the matter around. Why don't you give us 5 minutes?
I told you you have an hour.
Well, we're ready for cross.
Judge, and we'll just simply pose very clean objections that it's outside the scope or something like that, and you can rule before the jury, won't require argument. He's ready with cross, and Judge, we're ready to proceed. Perhaps the jury or all of us need maybe a 20-minute break, but certainly not an
I'd
hour.
like to get rid of this witness before we break.
Yes, sir. We'd like
this on stand.
We believe we can do that, Judge. We think we have
Hey,
that.
Mr. Tanner and I have discussed it here, and I think what's happened is that whatever objection Mr. Damore started with has sort of devolved into a discovery issue, but I'm telling you, we're ready to go.
All right, and we'll get to it.
Judge, members, may we just introduce this for the record, not to be presented?
Word for identification, but it's in the file.
Ms. Jenkins, do you recognize my letter of June 7th, 1991 to you?
I'm not going to testify, Mr. Damore.
That's fair.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bring it in the jury. Yes.
Your Honor, so as not to evolve any further, may Mr. Tanner do the objection, I'll give your quiet. Thank you.
Detective Tanner, during the course of your involvement in this case, did you come across the name of an individual named Philip Williams?
Yes, sir.
What information did you ascertain regarding that individual? Who is he?
Mr. Williams is a detective with the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. The information that you're referring to is a faxed copy of an investigative report of his concerning Charles Sizlove.
Before obtaining this document from Detective Williams, did you contact Indian River, or how did it come about that that information reached you?
I received information from the Calhoun County Correctional Institution that there was a Charles Sizlove in custody there that had information concerning Mrs. Wuornos. I traveled to Calhoun County Correctional Institution where I conducted a recorded interview with Mr. Sizlove. During the course of this interview, I had met with a inspector with the prison system there with the Calhoun County Correctional, and he referred this detective to me, saying that Mr. Sizlove had indicated knowledge of a homicide that they had investigated years past. And this is that investigative report of Mr. Sizlove's knowledge of that homicide.
When was it that you spoke to Mr. Sizlove?
So I wasn't asked to prepare to present Mr. Antonio's case, so I have not prepared myself to
The month.
do so. I would guess late August, early September of 1991.
And you yourself actually spoke to this Mr. Sizlove?
Yes, I have, sir.
During the course of your investigation, did you come across the name Susan Blankenship?
Yes, that name is familiar.
How about Randy Blankenship?
Yes.
Who is Randy Blankenship?
My understanding, these are two names that were developed by the Brevard County Sheriff's Office and had reference to the locating of Mr. Antonio's vehicle. These people gave the Brevard County Sheriff's Office interviews concerning seeing a vehicle being on the shoulder of the road in the area where Antonio's vehicle was found. And they described the second vehicle, and they described this being all seen during darkness hours. They described, in general, some persons that they saw there.
And they, in fact, described two females, did they not?
Yes, I believe that they, both of them felt that they were female subjects.
One of the females they described was heavyset, correct?
Again, I haven't read those narratives in some time, but I'm not prepared to, to say just what that description was.
The two females that they described, do you recall what the descriptions were specifically?
No, I do not.
Do you recall what they said about them specifically?
Specifically, no, not in specifics.
There were certain items of property found. There were certain items found in the vehicle, were there not?
Yes, there was.
There's some beer cans in the vehicle.
There were some beer cans in the vicinity of the vehicle. I don't think they were actually in the car itself.
Your Honor, may we identify which vehicle we're referring to?
The vehicle that the witness testified to, Your Honor. Question go.
Your Honor, yes.
Thank you, Judge. In addition, in the trunk of the vehicle, isn't it true that the license plate was in the trunk?
So I'm told, yes, sir.
There were also some 38 spent casings in the vehicle, were there not?
There was not.
Or were there 38 spent casings in the vicinity of the vehicle?
I believe there was some found in the vicinity of the roadway where the vehicle had been backed off of.
Those were collected and taken into evidence, were they not?
Yes, there were.
During the course of your investigation in this case, did you receive information that 2 women were also seen in the Wildwood area? Recall reports of that effect.
I have heard discussion of that, yes.
And I think I put a tab in it. You could use it to refresh your recollection. Do you recall what date was provided as far as that report is concerned, as that site? Approach the witness, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
May I forward on that question, Ron?
Yes, sir.
Officer, are you referring to a narrative of a report of someone else?
Referring to a documentation that's on Sheriff Don Moreland's letterhead.
But you did not make that report,
No, sir, I did not.
and you did not interview the person who was the subject of that report,
No, sir.
and you didn't hear the words of whoever that person was?
No, sir.
Your Honor, we would object as to the hearsay.
If I may follow up on the voir dire.
Yes, sir.
Detective, you were involved and had contact with other detectives in this case, did you not?
Yes, I have.
With Sergeant Munster of Marion County, correct?
Yes, sir.
With Brian Jarvis of Marion County, correct?
Yes, sir.
With Larry Horzebo of Volusia County, correct?
Correct, yes.
Jerry Thompson of Citrus County, correct?
Yes, sir.
With Detective Muck of Pasco County.
That's correct.
And all of you exchanged information, did you not?
Yes, sir, we did.
And the reports that all of you prepared were passed along from one to the other, correct?
I've only passed along those that's been requested from me.
And you also received reports from these other officers.
That's correct, yes.
And in conducting your investigation, is it fair to say that you relied on those reports?
Yes, sir.
And I think the question is proper as to what the witness learned and what he did with that knowledge.
What he did, fine, you were asking this.
Well,
Say the objection, the way I understood the question, and you want to ask me what he did, or all about it, then you proceed.
all I was saying, Your Honor, is you got to ask what it was before you get to what he did with it. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense as a question.
Well, I'm not going to let you
Sure.
have it that's found here, so.
Regarding information that 2 women were seen in the Wildwood area, what did you do with that information?
I have done nothing with it.
What date was provided?
According to this
That's fine.
document, it seems to be September the 11th of 1990.
If Your Honor, please, may I respectfully ask board iron on that again?
Yes, sir.
Was that from the report you just referred to, written by someone else,
That's correct.
based on the information allegedly by a third party?
That's correct, sir.
Your Honor, that's precisely the matter I objected to.
Let's stay the objection of that.
May I ask that that answer be stricken from the record? The jury is voted to disregard.
Disregard the last answer of the witness.
Mr. Antonio was a truck driver, was he not?
He had been employed in that in the past.
Do you have a document in there called a VICAP or VICAP, V-I-C-A-P?
Yes, I do.
It's like a checklist. Could you turn to that, please? That is a report that has sort of a checklist of items, is it not?
Yeah.
If you could just turn to item 138. In that item, you indicated that the decedent was not placed in an unnatural or unusual position. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
If you could turn to item 166. And just look at that to refresh your recollection. The decedent did not have his dentures, did he?
That's correct, yes.
If you could turn to item 167, you checked off there that this case did not involve an unusual assault, did you not?
That's correct.
When you spoke to Rose McNeil, you gave her a photograph of Tyria Moore to look at.
The photographic lineup,
And that photographic lineup included Tyria Moore's photograph.
yes, sir.
Where did you get Tyria Moore's photograph from?
I'm not sure, sir, where that was developed. It was not developed specifically by me, but in the course of the investigation.
You did not take that photograph yourself. You received it from other law enforcement officers.
That's correct.
Just like the information about Wildwood that you received from other law enforcement officers.
That's correct.
What made you ask other law enforcement officers to provide you with Tyria Moore's photograph?
I didn't ask.
They just sent it to you.
Well, it was brought up, we were meeting daily, we were living together, and the photographs, when obtained, each officer was furnished a copy of those photographs.
You were meeting daily. When did you start meeting daily, by the way?
I'm sorry?
When did you start meeting daily?
Along in first part of December of '90.
Okay. The identification that you talked about regarding, as far as Rose McNeil is concerned, occurred in November, however, did it not?
I'm not sure the exact date, sir.
What was the date?
Do we have to write the date that he met Rose McNeil, or the date Mrs. McNeil indicated that she saw the car?
The date that you motioned to strike, Your Honor, and the date you first met with Rose McNeil.
According to the transcribed statement taken from Mrs. McNeil, it was conducted on December the 22nd of 1990 at 3:20 p.m. sir.
And when you met with Ms. McNeil the first time, did you have Tyria Moore's photograph with you?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
I believe it is, so yes.
You did. Did you ask Ms. McNeil any specific questions about Ms. Moore?
There was questions asked about Mrs. Moore and Mrs. Wuornos. 30-some-odd page interview.
And Ms. McNeil provided to you information about Ms. Moore?
That's correct, sir.
Why did you show Ms. McNeil Ms. Moore's photograph, as opposed to just showing her Ms. Wuornos's?
For identification purposes, sir.
At this time, is there an indictment in Dixie County regarding Ms. Wuornos?
No, there's not.
The grand jury has not charged her in Dixie County, has it?
It has not.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Just very briefly. I'd like to show you, if I may, what was previously introduced in evidence. That's page 20 in evidence. As you, sir, if you could measure the barrel of page 20 in evidence for me. And if you would, sir, from the inside of the revolver to the exterior.
Your Honor, may I have what view of the witness?
Yes, sir.
Sir, have you had contact with that firearm yourself previous to today?
Have I had it today?
Yeah, have you ever touched it before?
Not that I remember, no.
Are you qualified in the area of ballistics?
Ballistics, no, sir.
Are you qualified in any firearms-related areas?
Other than firearm training in the course of my work, sir.
Colonel, we would object to the witness testifying as to the firearms.
I don't know anything other than the measures.
Well, other than measuring it, anticipating where it's going, Judge.
They really didn't even measure it,
He can measure it.
right?
What is the length of the barrel on stage 20 in evidence, the firearm identified as a murder weapon of Mr. Humphreys?
Objection, Your Honor. Motion to strike and for instruction, Your Honor.
The jury was not as framed by the prosecutor, framed it like this.
Can you tell us how large a barrel that is on stage 20, the firearm that you were holding in your hand?
5.5 inches.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
No,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
you keep the witness being discharged.
I guess we need to keep him to copy his reports, Judge.
And sir, you will stay available for counsel to copy your reports.